So our incoming Prime Minister has promised to give our seaside towns the power to reimagine themselves for the 21st century. And as an architect based in the southeast, I spent a lot of my time on this coastline thinking about the ways that our towns have evolved. British seaside towns were once designed around the British holiday. Hotels, theatres, promenades and piers were all built for a booming visitor economy. Cheap flights and changing industries and decades of underinvestment left many of these places now searching for a new purpose. So how do you bring a seaside town back to life? Many see Margate as the poster boy for Regeneration. In 2011, this struggling town gets a £17 million art gallery by a leading architect, and the tourists follow. Then eventually a food scene and the dormant theme park comes back to life. Now, personally, I can vouch for Dreamland because I broke my ankle at the roller disco when I was 30. Anyway, we call this the Bilbao effect, based on Frank Gehry's Guggenheim, where you drop a cultural landmark into a declining place and let regeneration ripple outwards. And in Margate, it worked. But that same district still has the highest youth unemployment in the southeast, and housing swallowed by holiday lets, and the gentrification label gets thrown around regularly. So when politicians point at Margate, we need to remember this is one solution, not the solution. Down the coast, Folkestone is very much based on a patronage model. One wealthy guy spending 2 decades and tens of millions of pounds buying derelict buildings and renting them cheaply to artists, developing new and novel buildings and bringing a whole quarter back to life with arts and creativity at its heart. But at this point is now tipping heavily into luxury seaside flats that most local people can't afford. Whitstable, on the other hand, never had a big plan. A local family reopened their old oyster warehouse as a restaurant, and Londoners started turning up, and the rest was decades of small independent decisions. A bakery here, a tap room there, the most organic model on the coast. But again, this is London money or tourist money coming in. As an architect, I'm obviously framing these decisions through that lens, but these are design strategies at different scales. They are the same move. Make the town more attractive for people coming in and hope that some of that money stays and trickles down. When the BBC asked people in Margate what they actually needed, nobody said a gallery. They said apprenticeships and jobs that last outside the summer period and somewhere reasonable to live. Obviously, we live on an island and our coastline is full of towns that got left behind, but there are far more towns than there are these grand projects to go around. Even the grand projects are struggling to make sense. You know, take the Eden Project North, seen as this key project for Morecambe, got delayed for years by rising costs and finally is being built, but at half the size. If most of our coast will never get a Turner or an Eden, what is the solution? And architects are really well placed to lead on that, because our job is to understand how a place actually works and turn that into a strategy. Ultimately, every seaside town needs reimagining, and very few need a landmark to do that. What do you think?